Hi everyone. Welcome to this special Independence Day episode of 4C Radio. We are broadcasting from our Media Hub studio at Christ University, Bangalore. As we celebrate our 79th Independence Day, it is a somber moment to reflect on the values for which we all fought: freedom, equality, fraternity, and independence from the colonial rule. In our hard-fought journey towards being an independent democratic nation, we enshrined the values of sovereignty, secularism, justice, liberty, equality, and fraternity in our Constitution. In celebrating this spirit of independence, we bring to you a special episode on media in India and the issues of freedom, expression, and democratic responsibilities. In the past month, the state of Karnataka has been witnessing and following the investigations at Dharmastala. Some may be aware that a case related to Saujanya, but now a new whistleblower who came forward about mass burials and has come forward to actually show proof. Now, the gruesome nature of these allegations, the scale of the crime, and the place being a really holy temple town, this incident should have been in headlines in every news outlet. As it happened, apart from a few online news platforms and dailies, the initial reports were far and few. Coverage did start increasing across digital platforms once the news had started to develop by the day. However, even before the news could gain traction, the hand of the law came heavy on media houses and prevented reportage. As Deccan Herald reported, what is equally distressing is the lightning speed with which the Bangalore City Civil Court temporarily curtailed the media's right to broadcast the proceedings of the case. Within just 15 days of the FIR being filed, a gag order was passed, leading to the de-indexing of more than 8,800 online articles that had reported on the police complaints related to the case. This curtailment of media, popularly called a gag order, also became a point of discussion and debate. And as it should, issues of media freedom, freedom of expression, and responsibilities of media in democracy all came to the fore. However, despite the order, social media was filled with user-generated videos about events and happenings at Dharmastala. So, what we want to understand and talk about are gag orders. What is it? Why is it required? Does it have any place in a democracy? And does a gag order on information make any sense in the age of social media? Let's try to figure out some answers.
Viewers, we move forward with the latest updates where a gag order restraining media coverage related to the brother of Dharmastala, Virendra Hekat, has been challenged.
A gag order on media refers to a legal or judicial directive that restrains journalists, news outlets, or any form of media from publishing or broadcasting certain information, usually relating to ongoing legal proceedings or very sensitive matters. Courts issue a gag order when they feel the dissemination of certain information is a hindrance to ensure fair trial rights, protect the privacy of victims, or safeguard national security and public order. As one can guess, national security, sensitive matters, and issues of public order are all up for interpretation and muddled in the ongoing political and social debates. Further, these gag orders might also be issued to prevent reputational harm of persons and organizations. Think of it as preventing plausible defamation of people in positions of power. To illustrate, let's turn to Subir Ghosh's 2016 book, Sue the Messenger, that informs us how organizations and people in power use the defamation law to hinder journalism. What Ghosh calls a SLAP, which stands for Strategic Lawsuit Against Public Participation, Bangalore's own enforces, both the Ambani brothers, ministers such as Praful Patel, all of them have used these strategic lawsuits to avoid information being reported. We spoke to journalist Dhanya Rajendran, who is the co-founder and editor-in-chief of the News Minute, about the recent gag orders her organization fought and how they navigated it. Most importantly, we wanted to ask, how do these gag orders impact reportage and journalism and overall the fourth pillar of democracy?
So there have been 3 gag orders in the Dharmastala related cases ever since 2023. Now, getting a gag order, especially an ex parte injunction from any court in Karnataka, is no longer surprising for me. In the Dharmastala issue, we were named in 2 of the injunctions and not in the 3rd. Now, what surprised me about this is that the people who approached the court were not anyone who were named directly in any of the reporting. For example, the first injunction came in the reporting of the murder and rape of this teenager named Saujanya. The people who went to court were the employees of the Manjunatha temple in Dharmasthala and others. It was not Rajya Sabha member Virendra Hegde or other people or other members of his family. So that was surprising that the court was giving gag orders or injunctions on the basis of petitions filed by people who were not directly aggrieved by any of the reporting. The second thing which surprised me is the sheer number of links. For example, there was one John Doe order which came in March 2025 in which the petitioner had listed thousands of links and the court gave its go-ahead for all these links to be deleted. I was wondering how much work the court would have put or not put in this case, because clearly many of these links were just normal reporting stuff where people have said this is happening or this is a fact. And even those were to be removed simply because the petitioner said they were defamatory in nature. So the court had not applied its mind. The court had not gone through the links, but simply given the order which the petitioner had asked for.
The obvious question that pops up is, isn't this curtailment of the basic freedom of the press? In a democracy, the media must hold the people in power accountable and to provide a voice to the voiceless. Moreover, it should proactively create an informed citizenry essential for the functioning of democracy. Then, don't these orders go against the very ethos of journalism within a democracy? The contradictions are glaring. Dhanya spoke at length about the impact these gag orders have on journalism.
See, injunction orders do impact journalism, but largely there are so many issues which go untouched, unreported, simply because there are injunction orders. Because media houses do not want to take the risk. Not just risk, it is just also about time, right? Now, let's say there is an injunction order. What happens is that people will appear during every hearing. All media houses will have their lawyers who will go for the hearing. But very rarely do we see people approaching court against an injunction. In fact, we are one of the few media houses, I think Edina is another one, which had approached against some of these injunctions right from the beginning. So when injunctions are not challenged, it just becomes easier for the news organization to just tell its reporters, you know what, keep away. And I think in Karnataka, the biggest example is the Prajwal Revanna rape story. Now, the CDs of what Prajwal Revanna did had been given to a few channels, I think more than 2 years before the case was registered against him. At that time, perhaps a journalist would have gone through those tapes, but by then Prajwal Revanna had taken an injunction from court saying that there are CDs circulating about me and it should not be published. And the court gave the injunction. So eventually, when these journalists got the CDs, I am assuming that they did not even bother to watch it because anyway there was an injunction. Perhaps they were under the impression that these are just sex CDs. They did not understand it was sexual assault. But I'm pretty sure that at the time, if a journalist had gone through the CD, despite there being an injunction, they would have still carried the story because it is clearly a matter of sexual assault. But I'm saying the injunction must have dissuaded people from even watching it. So it does do a lot of damage when courts give injunctions, and that to ex parte, which basically means you are giving an injunction against a media house without asking for their explanation.
From how it looks, especially in the Karnataka courts, the media here seems to be at a disadvantage because of ex parte injunctions. Isn't it an additional hurdle to the already bruised and battered news media? Political control, ownership bias, financial constraints, corporate takeovers, Advertising influences and subsequent biases, censorship, government interference, lack of credibility in an information saturated society. These are just some of the problems plaguing our news media. Now, add to all of this the possibility of a court order coming your way. Journalists, as most of us do, would think twice before reporting. Does this mean then journalists and news organizations approach these stories differently? And how do journalists navigate reporting in the time of gag orders? Dhanya explains.
Personally, I approach every story the same way. It does not make a difference to me if there is an injunction on a story, as long as the facts are right, as long as we have taken into consideration every angle possible, we'd never stop publishing. Because what do courts eventually say? A court does not say, do not publish about this person. A court injunction will tell you, do not publish defamatory stuff about a person. And as long as we are factually correct and we have taken all precautions, and also we have taken the effort to reach out to all sides and get their reactions, I think stories can go. In some stories, for example, we are doing a story in which somebody was acquitted of a crime, but the survivor is speaking up for the first time. So these are stories we do send to our legal team to just check whether we are okay to publish, how much to be removed, etc. But I don't think having an injunction per se stops us from publishing or reporting.
There you heard it, folks, straight from the editor. Get those facts, provide that evidence. But there's still one aspect that might deter journalists. As mentioned earlier, gag orders often involve people in positions of power, corporations, and or state officials. Now, the individual journalist might be pitted against these powerful actors in the court of law. While the facts might be on the side of the journalists, the economic, political, and social might of the petitioners makes it an uneven playing field. I shall request all our listeners to go back to Subir Ghosh's book and read for multiple examples of the same. This is where organizational support becomes vital. Let's listen to what Dhanya has to say about this kind of organizational support.
As a reporter uncovers these stories, the organizations have to stand by them, not only in ensuring that the story is published at the right time, given the right importance, but also that if it does run into troubled waters, and that need not be just legal, right? It can come in different ways. It can come through online harassment, it can come through intimidation, threats, or even legal cases. The organization has to back the reporter. Unfortunately, what happens in many cases is that the organizational backing is not there. Simply because the organization itself does not have the time, luxury, sometimes the willpower to fight these things. So I think it's important that the organization makes it clear from the beginning whether it's interested in pursuing a particular story and how far is it ready to go to protect its reporter.
Wow, seems like the whole village needs to come together to level the playing field for the journalists, especially when it comes to various pressures, including the gag orders. That automatically begs the question. Our country, where freedom of expression is held in high regard, and we have an extremely vibrant, diverse news media ecosystem, why are we still holding on to these gag orders? Wouldn't it be better for journalism and subsequently democracy if these orders cease to exist? And I thought Dhanya would agree with me on this, and I was wrong. Things are far more nuanced, and I'll let Dhanya explain in her own words.
I'm not against people approaching court with cases of defamation, civil defamation that is. I'm against criminal defamation per se. But if a person feels that they have been aggrieved by reporting and that reporting is false by nature, defamatory nature, I think they have all the rights to approach a court of law. And I don't think we should object to courts giving injunctions per se. For example, if I have done reporting which is not true in nature or which is extremely derogatory, another person has the right to approach court against me. But here the problem is not the court giving injunctions. The problem is, there are two issues here. One is, of course, it is an ex parte injunction, which does not happen in most other courts in India. It is a very peculiar thing of Karnataka courts where they give ex parte injunctions where the other party is not asked. That's the first problem. The second problem is the nature of this. Basically, anybody and everybody is able to get an injunction on stories which were already published, which are about to be published. So that is dangerous, right? How can the court give an injunction order saying 1,000 links have to be removed or 8,000 links have to be removed? Have you gone through each to understand what is defamatory? How can a court give an injunction saying, do not publish in the future something which is defamatory in nature? I think that is a problem here.
Going by this, gag orders ideally exist to protect the rights of citizens, all citizens, like all other laws. However, in a country like ours, where the gap between the rich and poor is tremendous, power rests firmly in the hands of a few. Consequently, even law seems to favor the powerful in many cases, and the majority fight an unfair, uneven battle. In this context, what should the responsibility be of the journalist? What rules should one keep in mind while reporting in times of rampant political, economic, and social inequalities? According to Dhanya, it's all about providing context. Listen in.
How should a reporter go about uncovering a story? I think the rules or the do's and don'ts remain largely the same. You have to be sure about your source of information. You have to recheck your source with perhaps more than one or two people. But I think what we do not tell reporters, especially when they're training to be journalists, is that it is not enough that you report what A said, what B said, or what C said, which is what colleges normally teach us. But we have to tell journalists to put things in perspective. Who is A? Is B powerful? Is C in power? These are things which can change the way a story pans out, right? So I think that kind of realization should be there among even young reporters, and that will make a lot of difference to how stories are reported.
None of this is easy, but it is most essential for a thriving democracy. We will continue to explore issues of press freedom and provide context, perspective, and facts, not just about gag orders, but other challenges too. Though restrictions such as gag orders have a place in our society, it is important to see how they are imposed and when and who benefits from them. If the powerful wield it against journalism, then democracy as a whole becomes a victim. But then, standing up for what is right has never been a smooth ride. Just as our people fought for the independence of our country for years together, we too have to be rigorous and relentless about safeguarding the freedoms that are the core of our society. Keep listening, and please remember, always question everything. We'll see you next week. Thank you. Please remember to share, subscribe, and like.